Have you ever met someone who always makes everything about themselves, no matter the situation? Someone who seems charming at first, but over time, you start feeling emotionally drained around them? If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling invisible, unimportant, or even manipulated, you might have encountered narcissistic behavior. In this video, we're going to explore how to spot narcissistic behavior in a way that's simple, clear. Narcissists have a fragile sense of self under their inflated ego, and they often react strongly when their image is challenged. Sometimes, it's subtle, like guilt-tripping, gaslighting, or using charm as a weapon. For instance, they might compliment you excessively when they want something, but become cold or distant when they don't get their way. They may try to control how you see yourself, who you spend time with, or even what you believe about your own reality. If you constantly second-guess your thoughts, feelings, or decisions around someone, that's a serious sign something is off, and it may point to narcissistic manipulation. You cannot educate someone out of their need for control. Narcissistic behavior often comes from deep psychological wounds, but unless they choose to confront their own behavior and seek professional help, change is unlikely. Your job is not to be their therapist. Your job is to preserve your peace, your self-worth, and your sanity. Even mild, constructive feedback can trigger defensiveness, blame shifting, or passive-aggressive responses. It's not about labeling people to attack or shame them, but about protecting yourself from emotional harm. Narcissists are often deeply wounded individuals, but that doesn't mean you should tolerate mistreatment. Learn to trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore the red flags just because you want to see the good in someone. Be kind, but be wise. The more you learn to recognize unhealthy patterns, the stronger and healthier your relationships will become. They believe they're more important, more talented, more deserving than others, and they crave recognition to validate this self-image. In the early stages of a relationship, whether romantic, professional, or even friendship-based, narcissists often appear incredibly attentive, affectionate, or invested. This phase is sometimes referred to as love bombing. They shower you with compliments, attention, and promises. But as time passes, their true behavior surfaces. The charm fades, the manipulation begins, and you're left wondering what changed. This pattern is particularly dangerous because it creates emotional confusion. You start holding on to the good version of them, hoping that person will return. But that version was never real, it was a mask. They may exaggerate their achievements, name drop to seem more important, or constantly seek reassurance. But the problem is, no amount of praise is ever enough. Awareness is the first and most powerful step. Once you can name the behavior, you begin to see it clearly. You realize their words are not reflections of your worth but projections of their own insecurities. Set boundaries, firm, respectful, and consistent. Don't argue with manipulation. Don't justify your emotions. Just say no when you need to and walk away when the conversation becomes toxic. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it's necessary. As soon as they get what they want, they're already looking for the next ego boost. And when people stop feeding that need, they may discard them, emotionally or socially, like they were never important. This idealize, devalue, and discard cycle is a classic behavior pattern in narcissism. They might say things like, "You're just too sensitive," or "You always find something to complain about." They rarely take ownership, and instead, they'll twist the narrative so you're the one in the wrong. This form of psychological deflection is common in narcissistic behavior. It's not about finding the truth, it's about preserving their ego. And deeply insightful, so you can protect your mental well-being and maintain healthier relationships. Narcissistic behavior isn't always easy to identify, especially in the beginning. Narcissists are often highly skilled at impression management. They can come across as confident, charismatic, and even generous. But over time, a pattern starts to emerge, a pattern rooted in entitlement, lack of empathy, control, and a constant need for admiration. One of the clearest early signs is the conversation always circling back to them. If you notice that someone consistently dominates conversations, talks over others, and only seems to listen so they can respond about themselves, it's not just a personality quirk, it might be narcissism in action. Another red flag is the lack of empathy. Narcissistic individuals struggle to genuinely connect with the emotions of others. If you're hurt or struggling, they might quickly shift the topic, minimize your experience, or somehow turn your pain into something that reflects on them. Instead of offering comfort, they offer competition. "You think you had a bad day? Let me tell you about mine." Over time, this emotional disconnect becomes exhausting and can leave you feeling unseen and unheard. True empathy involves listening, validating, and responding with care, not using someone's vulnerability as an opening to talk more about yourself. Pay attention to how they respond to criticism or feedback. Control and manipulation are also central to narcissistic behavior. This doesn't always come across as aggressive or overt. Narcissistic individuals often live in a fantasy world of superiority. Let's not forget the false charm. So how do you protect yourself once you recognize these patterns? Also, don't try to fix or heal the narcissist. That's a trap many people fall into. You cannot love someone into empathy. To wrap up, spotting narcissistic behavior is about seeing beyond the surface.